As we continue to turn our attention further and further to the class of 2022, there's been a name you've heard me talk about, and that is five-star cornerback, number 6 player in the nation, number 3 cornerback in the nation, Denver Harris. Now, you've heard me talk about Denver Harris in relation to two programs in particular, Texas and Alabama, and just yesterday, Denver Harris released his top 4, and we really need to talk about it because the recruitment of Denver Harris and the pursuit of him is going to be incredibly intriguing, and it's already intriguing to see how there are so many ties based back to two programs in particular, and we gotta talk about it. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. So hop down in the comments and give me a Y for yes or an N for no. If you look at the top 4 schools Denver Harris released, 3 of them are in the SEC. Do you believe Denver Harris ends up going to an SEC school? Once again, Y for yes, N for no, and let me know why down below. Guys, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, that way you don't miss any of my uploads, as I do constant college football content, player reviews, film analysis, talk style videos like this, you name it, and I'm on my push to 5,000 subscribers within my first year of my YouTube channel, and I'd really like to have you along for the journey. If you enjoy the video, drop a like and comment down below, because that really does help content creators like myself get picked up by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, let's talk Denver Harris. And look, aside from him being a top 10 player in the nation, aside from him having already the frame that colleges are just coveting at the cornerback position, specifically with the revolution of the offense and the modern offense in college football, that 6-foot-plus corner is becoming more and more important because it allows for ranginess. It just is becoming an incredibly coveted thing. And it really just goes to point out how incredibly loaded this year's cornerback class is. And it goes to show that the camp setting is only going to improve upon certain positions, specifically wide receivers, cornerbacks, defensive line, and offensive line, because those guys are getting one-on-one reps with each other, and they're going against some of the best guys in the country, and that's really starting to show. But Denver Harris is a guy, like I said in the beginning, you've heard me talk about in relation to two programs, Alabama and Texas. But in his top 4, not only did it include Alabama and Texas, but it also included LSU, and it included Texas A&M. Now, I'm going to go from the top down and explain kind of why this recruiting battle is so intriguing. And for those of you that have seen my videos on the University of Texas and talking about Denver Harris, then you'll know why I think he's important. But for those of you that haven't, the basic synopsis of it is that the University of Texas has been on a tear on the offensive end of recruiting. Of their 6 commits right now, 4 of them are top 100 players, and all 4 of those guys are offensive players. Steve Sarkisian is absolutely killing it on the recruiting trail, and it doesn't look to be slowing down because now players are recruiting each other, and that's exactly where you want to be. But they haven't had that big splash on defense yet, and it's only a matter of time. You look at the state of Texas, and it is once again loaded with talent. Bryce Anderson is a guy that I really, really like because I think that he is what your modern safeties are going to be looking more and more like because they can mask so much. Denver Harris is a cornerback I'm very high on. Y'all know this. One of those guys could be the guys that get the ball rolling for the Sark era. And that's actually a pitch, right? That Sark can go to them and say, you can be the first defensive guy to get this ball rolling to bring us back to where we need to be. And so because of that, Texas is of course going to be pursuing Denver Harris incredibly hard. And Alabama is squarely in this for 2 key reasons. First off, the obvious one that you've heard me talk about before, and that is that Jay Valai, the former cornerbacks coach for the University of Texas, who is already pursuing Denver Harris, is now at the University of Alabama. And that gives them a bit of a unique insight into Denver Harris because they have somebody who's familiar with him. The other interesting thing about the University of Alabama is that Nick Saban himself offered Denver Harris when Denver Harris was a freshman and had a really interesting talk with him, telling him, you have all of the tools you need. You are one of our most coveted prospects for this class in particular. Stay grounded, stay humble, and keep working. Denver Harris went on to talk about how much that meant to him and what that offer meant because he considers Nick Saban to be the greatest college football coach of all time, and he said to play for him would be legendary. That's a really tough sell to go against, right? If you have a kid who already looks up to Nick Saban, whose cornerback coach that was at Texas and you felt comfortable with, or that you were just familiar with, is also now at Bama, that's a really tough sell. Now, I'm not saying that that makes Bama the favorite in this circumstance, but I do think that that is a very hard thing to go against, is that he already likes Nick Saban, a guy that was on Texas's staff, was already recruiting Denver Harris is now also at Alabama. It's just an interesting perspective. The other two schools, LSU and A&M, also have interesting tidbits. So I'll start with LSU, because you might be thinking, okay, well, Texas is in the state of Texas, A&M is in the state of Texas, and not only was Denver Harris offered by Nick Saban when he was a freshman, but now Nick Saban's cornerback coach was the former cornerback coach for the University of Texas who was already pursuing Denver Harris. So LSU seems to be the odd man out, right? Wrong. Actually, LSU finds themselves in a similar situation as Alabama. Remember when I just talked about Alabama, I had the two parts. One, the cornerback coach coming from Texas to Alabama, which gave them a bit of a unique insight, and two was the offer of Nick Saban. Well, LSU obviously doesn't have the offer of Nick Saban. They haven't had that in a while. But what they do have is TJ Rushing, who is the primary recruiter for Denver Harris. And the reason that's important is because TJ Rushing was at Texas A&M last year. He's familiar with Denver Harris. He recruited Denver Harris. He's been on that pursuit, and Denver Harris is familiar with him. The recruitment of Denver Harris is going to be so intriguing because all of these programs have ties back in some capacity at some length to Texas and A&M, right? A&M gave LSU, or LSU took TJ Rushing rather, and A&M you might be saying, okay, well, where do they stand? Jimbo Fisher is going after Denver Harris really hard, and he's made it a point to not only talk about the need for Denver Harris, but the need to raid North Shore High School. For those of you not familiar with Texas high school football, North Shore High School is just about as big as it gets. There are a lot of high schools in Texas that have an incredibly proud history, and North Shore finds themselves up there with the best of them. Anything you can say about any other program, you can generally say about North Shore. They pump out 4 stars, 5 stars like it's going out of style, and they are perennially ranked as one of the top teams, not only in the state of Texas, but in the United States. The reason why I think that this recruitment battle for Denver Harris is so intriguing is because, like I said, they all point back to having similarities, right? You have Jay Valai, who was at Texas, who is now at Alabama. You have TJ Rushing, who was at A&M, who is now at LSU, and all 4 of those programs find themselves in Denver Harris's top 4, so that does lead me to believe that he was at least not only comfortable with TJ Rushing in particular, but he liked how TJ Rushing was recruiting him, and it doesn't hurt that LSU has done what they've done with defensive backs over the past few years, right? Even with the absence of Dave Aranda, they still land Elias Ricks. They have Derek Stingley there. That's a very tough sell to go against if you're a defensive back. It's almost like being a wide receiver and not going to the University of Alabama as it currently sits, because Alabama's put 4 receivers into the first round of the NFL draft in 2 years. That's just nutty production that you don't see. So y'all get my point. But comment down below. Let me know what y'all are thinking about the commitment and recruitment of Denver Harris, because I really think this is intriguing. That all 4 of these universities have similar ties as these chess pieces have continued to move. A Texas cornerback coach that was already on Denver Harris is now at Alabama. An A&M cornerback coach who was already on Denver Harris is now at LSU. And when we look at the top 4, we see Texas, LSU, Alabama, A&M. That's really intriguing to me, and I really can't wait to hear what y'all think, and I really can't wait to see where he goes, because this is a hell of a player. That's it. See ya.